In order to avoid the propagation of a calculation error to the user interface, in DAX you can use specific functions that allows you to handle calculation errors. We can see an example of calculation error by trying to divide the two measures that you see in this pivot table. For example, we have the sum of sales and the sales of the last year, and we want to create a calculated field that divides the sum of sales by the sales of last year. We call this field growth percentage, and we put this field in the sales table. Now we write the DAX formula, and this division will have a result that is not correct for the first few months of the year. As you see, from January to June we have an error because we are trying to divide the sum of sales by the sales last year, which is 0. We can fix this issue by using a specific DAX function that handles a calculation error. This function is ifError, and we can include our calculation as a first argument of the ifError function. The second argument of the ifError is the value that has to be returned in case the first argument returns an error. If the calculation of the first argument is correct, is the one that is returned by the ifError. Of course, we take care of displaying the value as a percentage. At this point, in the pivot table, we see that there are no longer errors for the first 6 months of the 2006. We just have a blank value in this case. Now, the technique that we used intercepts any error of calculation. If we want to check only the division by 0 error, we have to use another approach. In this case, we may just check the denominator of the ratio, so instead of using the ifError function, we can use the if function. The if function has to check if the sales last year is different than 0, and in this case we will return the division between sum of sales and sales last year. Otherwise, we will return blank. The difference in this case is that we will receive a blank as a result in case the denominator is 0, but in case there is another calculation error, we will display it in the pivot table instead of hiding it, because the ifError intercepts any error, and not only the division by 0 error. If the only condition of error that you want to check is the division by 0 error, there is a better function to use, which is divide. Divide can be used with two arguments. The first is the numerator, and so we just put the sum of sales as numerator in this case for the first argument, and the second is the denominator. The third argument is the result that has to be returned in case there is an error. In this case we use blank, but if we remove this third argument, we will obtain blank as well as a result in case of an error. So by using blank or not putting the third argument, we will obtain the same result. So now we can close our calculated field dialog box, and we see that we have the same result as before. The difference between using if and divide is that divide is usually faster, because if has to evaluate the denominator expression twice, whereas with the divide statement the denominator is evaluated only once. For this reason, is faster.